Hey everybody, it's Shelley Hoffman here, and I am with Dick Clarke, our mayor, and he's going to give us an update. It always amazes me how much can happen in a week. Remember, we thought, oh, is there going to be stuff to talk about or or not? But there's always something going on, which is awesome.
Well, and I like the opportunity, particularly when it's good stuff, to get out to people that, the news you see is depressing, but sometimes we have some good stuff going on here. And I've been instructed by somebody not to give bad news. Uh, I don't know who that would be, but
I don't know who that is.
for the most part, it is good news, positive type news. For instance, our court, they think, based on what they're hearing from the state, that they will go back into service in August. Would be August 12th would be the first actual court date, and so they're trying to get themselves ready. We've put up some sneeze guard, the plastic things between what would be between the person who's coming into court and the judge and the clerk, so that they would be protected.
Okay.
And there's some other things that they have to do. We'll have to have a police officer / bailiff type person in the building for the entire time to enforce the masks and the distancing and that type of stuff. One thing the court is looking for, if somebody's looking for a little part-time work, they need a screener, so that everybody comes in will get the thermometer, on the forehead, and the questionnaire. Have you had any symptoms? Have you been around anybody? That type of thing. And it would be like a 3:30 to 6, just three nights a month, for as long as we would need to do it.
Is
So
there an age requirement for that? Like, is that something a teenager could do, or they have
I
to be
I really don't
vetted?
know. That would probably, they would have to call the court, at 635-6355, and see what the stipulations are. Um, I would assume that they'd want somebody 18 or older. It's not a very glamorous job, obviously. You're hoping not to find sick people, but they're sort of semi excited but nervous too about the possibility of opening up. It'll be a very different kind of court. If an attorney has 2 or 3 clients, the attorney will come in, and the 2 or 3 clients will sit spaced apart. That attorney will have each of his clients, have their day. Each one will leave as they're done. And when that attorney's done, then the next attorney can come in with his or her 2 or 3 clients, or however many. And it'll sort of be almost like an appointment type thing. The door will stay locked. The screener or the police officer who's working will open the door. Again, remind people they have to keep their mask on. There'll be sanitary stuff to wipe their hands off, because we're worried about them getting sick as much as the people that are in there. And so it's a step back into a bit of a normal world, but it's not going to look very normal
No.
to most anybody. But we haven't had court since March, so like everything else. And they're one of the slower ones to start coming back. So that's, to me, is a good sign. So if you're anybody, particularly somebody who got laid off and is getting unemployment, and if the 600 hours a week runs out, somebody may need to pick up a couple hours. And you're not going to get rich. It's a minimum wage type job, but if you're working 2.5, 3 hours, you're talking, $40. That buys a couple of things of grocery, some groceries. So if you're interested, let the court know. Moving on, the court will be, just so people know, we'll have to clean the court before it's used. We'll have to clean it afterwards.
I was going to ask that. Does it have to be clean between each case, or?
I don't think we would have to do that.
Okay.
That would be pretty difficult. We might ask the screener to wipe down some chairs, where the people were sitting, just quickly. But trying to decide what to do with restrooms, and because they would be in and out pretty quickly, we may not have restrooms open. That's still something to be determined, because that would be more of a concern, cleaning more often.
Yeah.
Because we can have our cleaning crew come in first thing in the morning at 8 o'clock and clean the restrooms and the courtroom if that's okay. Still a few of those things to be worked out, but the state court system dictates a lot of that.
Okay.
So we're still waiting to hear from that. Another positive, baseball starts tomorrow. Yankees play at Washington. I watched a couple exhibition games this week. Kind of weird with nobody in the stands. So guy hits a home run and there's nobody trying to catch the ball in the stands. But you know what? It's better than watching a rerun of a 2018 Yankee game against Tampa Bay or something, which it's something different to do.
Yeah.
I watched that basketball tournament that the Syracuse guys were in, Boeheim's Army. Not very good basketball, but it was, again, better than watching a rerun for a couple days. I almost wore my Yankee shirt, but I held
Well,
on.
we can see some Yankee things behind you. You have the birdhouse behind you.
Yeah, the birdhouse is there, and Zach Britton's glove and stuff back there. Let's run down through a few things. Codes office, Greg wanted me to remind people, Village does not pick up garbage or furniture. People will put stuff out at the road, and when he says something to him, he said, well, I figured the Village would pick it up. We don't pick up that kind of stuff. We don't have the manpower to do that. You have to contract with your hauler.
Okay.
And they come in with a different truck. Like if you put a couple chairs out, they'll send a truck out, a pickup truck or whatever, and throw them in the back. You have to pay for it. But we do not. So don't put that stuff at the road and then wonder why the Village hasn't picked it up. Greg points out that the model for the apartments on Lock Street is open.
Oh, nice.
They're showing people the model. He said there's just a couple of little things that they have to, like a test that they have to do, maybe for the water pressure type stuff, and something else that has to be done. And when that's complete, the the certificate of occupancy, will be then signed and people can start moving in.
Nice.
That would be the second building down, which was actually the first building built. So that's ready to go. And it kind of looks like the next phase that they're hoping to do are the houses at the far end of the street, because if you go down and look, you can see where the connections for water and stuff are all sticking up out of the ground, and that's kind of new. Makes me think that they'd like to start building a few houses and make a little bit. It's a little bigger cash flow and quicker than the apartments.
Right. Definitely quicker. That took a lot longer than I think anybody anticipated for those to go up.
Yeah, they ran into some issues, and he might have stretched himself a little thin. He's building in a lot of different places, and then of course the virus hit, and they were so close at that point to being ready to go, and it just sat. So to me, that's good news that we may see some people moving in and some cars parked in the parking lot because people are living there. Good news, tomorrow is the closing on the United Street property that I was telling you before we started. We affectionately refer to it as Castor's Pond. It's right around the corner from Virginia Street. It's been an empty parcel for years that flooded every spring, and that's where the pond thing came from. And one of the neighbors purchased the property from the Village, and it looks like he's going to annex it to his property, and then he can expand, maybe build a garage over in that area. But it was a piece of property we could do nothing with. All we had to do was maintain it every year with pumps and stuff to get the water out. Now it's hopefully going to be put to good use, and it's off of our hands. And
on the tax form, would you mind, Mayor, just taking a minute to explain to people why a house or something couldn't get built on that? Because I know that question came into the Village and different places as to it was sold cheap because there wasn't much you could do with it.
Right.
Can you explain why? Because I know Greg got a lot of questions and things like that about that parcel.
Yeah, when you build, you have to have, first of all, it has to be, I think the house can only occupy 25% of the existing property. So think of that property, how small it is, how small the house would be. It'd be like a garage.
Right.
We don't allow people to take vacant property like that and build just a garage. require it to be a residency. So there's problems with setbacks, particularly on the side setbacks. If you build a house, it would have to be like 8 feet wide in order to have the proper setbacks, so that we have a minimum square footage of property that we allow a house to be built on. I don't know if it's 900 and some, maybe that's the size of the house.
Well, and I think it's a frontage too. There has to be so much
Yeah.
frontage. And originally that lot was grandfathered in. That's why there was a house there originally years ago, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
And it got torn down and just sat there vacant. And I don't know if we purchased it or if it just kind of got, hey, it's yours now, Village, because we don't want anything to do with it. And we had thought of different ways of trying to use it, and it wasn't anything practical at all. I know people, Steve D'Arcangelo had thought different times, is there anything we could do at all here? And it just didn't work out. There's nothing. And so now the fella who's the actual first house down the street on Oneida Street had wanted it, and I guess his hope is now he can build a garage on it, but it will be a bigger property because it'll be merged with his property. So it'll look nicer, and he's happy. I know some of the other owners around there were a little bit interested in it, but his is the most practical because it's right next to it. So that's off our books as of tomorrow morning. We're very happy for that. The negative, I don't know if we mentioned it last week, because I think I had heard it just before we went live, and it was kind of like they weren't revealing it publicly, but the Taste of Baldwinsville is officially canceled. Not good news, but the good news is that they are hoping for 2021. I mean, the idea is not going away. Just this year, it was too impractical to try to figure out if there's going to be music, if they would be allowed to have it, crowds big enough to make it worth it. So like everything else so far this year, the state fair, everything else, that's one we cross off our list, which is kind of too bad. Canton Woods is picking up a little steam. We found somebody to do the flooring. We'd had problems with getting a company to come in and actually want to do it. When we do something, people don't realize there's a thing called prevailing wage. And so you may pay your workers $12 an hour, but prevailing wage may be $14, which the government says all municipalities have to pay this minimum. The private contractor doesn't have to, but when they work for the municipality has to pay more per hour, and it makes it more expensive for us. So when people will say, well, we could tear this down or the village could tear it down, we always say it's going to be cheaper for you to tear it down because we have to pay more per hour for the employees that do it. So it was hard to find a company that they did not want to deal with prevailing wage. Don't understand why. I didn't hear the reasons, just that. But we did find somebody. My wife and I went over to the senior center Monday to drop off a great big box of puzzles, jigsaw puzzles. And Ruth came out with a book of flooring and said, here's the style. And I'm trying to find, Steve had asked her to pick out one or two that she thought would go better with this in the center. So she was quite excited, and I can understand that. So that hopefully will be something very quickly. I mean, we'd love to get that floor in before the center can open.
Yeah.
Then we don't have to put tables back in and then take tables back out and have people in and say, okay, now you can't come in for a day or two because it's going to be tied up. So hopefully that will be taken care of soon. The drive up frozen lunches going very well. They had 30 people Monday. And for a lot of the people, I'm sure the excitement is more than the food is to be able to put their window down and see somebody, whether it's Ruth or Joni or Nancy, whoever might be helping, just to see another face and, hey, how you doing? And hopefully we'll see you soon. And, that kind of stuff, little stuff like that goes a long way with people. Again, it's a Monday, Friday thing, and for Friday you have to call by Monday of that week, and for the following Monday you have to call by the previous Thursday. And they do have a few farmers market coupons, They've given out a lot of them. So call the center. The book club, which is a pretty viable group. They were a monthly meeting, and they're going to meet outside August 18th. You can call the center for more information on what book they're reading, that type of thing, if you want to participate. A yoga instructor has put a Zoom lesson online. It's on the village website. So if you go on baldwinsville.org, there will be a link to a website and the password, so that when you get to the streaming site and it'll ask you, for your sign on or whatever, it's listed on the website. So that's nice for people at home who want to work out. It might be the same yoga session for 3 times a week, but
it takes 3 sessions for me to figure out the move, so it can be the same.
I would say that would be a minimum for me. That's the same with the Zumba stuff. I was saying to my wife the other day, again, I went to Zumba on the island when the first time they had it. And, my sister pushed me, and I said, okay, good move to go. And you see a lot of people, oh, how you doing? And so I was doing it. And then when I watched the video, I realized how bad I was. But they had about 6 instructors, and they each took their turn. And some of them would do, okay, we're going to go left, we're going to go right. And now I'm ready to go left again. Now we're turning around, and I'm still going left. And by the time you stop your body, which for me takes longer than most of them, they've not only turned around, but now they're going the other direction. And it's like, you just start shaking your head and body and look like you're moving. It's kind of crazy, but.
Yep, you just have fun. Hey, Cindy chimed in, actually, speaking of your sister, that they're going to shoot for some outdoor Zumba classes. So maybe we'll hear something about that soon. And she also said there's a food bank giveaway today as well. So she wanted to throw that out there to everybody.
Very good. I know that I had told her, she'd asked me before about Zumba on the island. And I said, you do what you did before and just take your shot. You don't have to sign up the island. I mean, just say, we're going to meet out there at 10 o'clock and have some music and plug in and go, as long as you keep your distancing and that type of stuff. They did it before, and they were without the distancing. I mean, who wants to be within 6 feet of anybody on either side? When the arms start going around, you're going to start knocking each other out. So I thought, if the church on the island is going and they seem to be doing well, then why wouldn't Zumba? So hopefully that will be, offer people just a chance to get out of the house. We're always looking for good excuses to get out of the house, and a little exercise doesn't hurt. Maureen Butler threw out a bunch of stuff for me to remind people of Village Hall. To remind people that they are a notary public. If you're a village resident, it's a free service, and they will either come outside and stamp your thing and sign it, or bring you into the hallway, but have to have masks in order to come in the building. They have a new list on the door of phone numbers to access different services in the village, including the police department, for people bringing medication down, or if they need handicap passes, that type of thing. You can call the police department and set up when you want to come in, and then they'll try to have somebody meet you, either to take your bag of medicine and put it in we have the boxes in the lobby for medicine and for needles. And they would, as in the past, they usually send somebody over to take care of your handicap pass. Now, most of those things the expiration dates have been kind of waived for the time being. But if you're nervous and you would like, maybe you don't have one to start with, you like your first time, call the police department, 635-3131, or if you come down, there is a list on the door, and you can call, and the dispatcher or somebody will come over and help you out. The gazebo and our pavilions at the 2 parks are available to rent. I know there was a party this weekend. I got an email from the guy who scheduled it, said it was great. People were raving about the location being on the river. The biggest downfall we have right now is the restrooms are still not open. I asked the county if there's been any change as far as, 2 hours or 4 hours, or maybe do it once a day, but do a thorough spray down, with how they do it with the disinfectant stuff. And was told that there's been no change, which was, the county was saying 2 hours. I've had people tell me that they were at Green Lakes for 4 or 5 hours and did not see the facility cleaned the entire time they were there. The state says they're being cleaned regularly. It's kind of tough. We do try to adhere to the rules, and we look to our bigger organizations for guidance, because if anything comes back, we'd like to be able to say, well, this is the county
Right.
guideline, this is the state guideline, we didn't just make this up. And then when people tell you that maybe the county or state aren't doing it as often as they would like to, and maybe they're telling people to do it, and some of the workers just aren't getting around as often. So it presents a problem. The biggest problem for us was the weekends, and obviously that's the biggest use time. So we'll keep an eye on that. If something changes where we can have it less, we were talking about having to hire a cleaning company to come in to do it every 2 hours. It would have been quite expensive, and we're already taking a hit in some areas, and don't know if we'll get made whole at the end of the budget year. So, but those things are still available. The rest, we have the pavilion and gazebo at Mercer Park, and a pavilion at Community Park. I wasn't down there this weekend, but a couple weekends ago, and I've never seen so many trucks with trailers for people boating, and people down there with kayaks. And I talked to Chuck McAuliffe on Tuesday, yesterday. He said he was down there on the weekend, or it was in his boat and went by, and said he'd never seen so many vehicles for boats and stuff as he saw that day. The softball fields are being used for softball. That is not a dog park. He scolded somebody who just said they didn't realize it was a problem, and they would pick it up after their dog and that type of stuff. But the problem is not everybody does. Now you got people going out to play softball, and you got landmines all over the grass, and we really don't find that very appealing, and also is not very safe health-wise. So please, that's not a dog park. And dogs are supposed to be on a leash in Community Park. Now, there are people who get in the park and let their dogs off the leash to run. And I understand the desire, but there are signs up. If your dog did something, you might have a hard time justifying that to a judge if you got sued, if your dog did some damage to somebody. So take a look at the signs where it says dogs must be on a leash. Also, Maureen reminded me, absentee ballot applications are available at Village Hall. You can call or you can email Village Hall and send a message, and they will get you an application so that you can get an absentee ballot. I think that's about all I have, unless you have some questions.
I don't have questions, but you almost got a text from me. Oh my goodness, maybe Saturday night or Monday night. I've been walking the village like a lot of people, and now when I go across the bridge, because we've talked so many times about the people leaving things behind, that there was one person left fishing on the bridge, and they were all the way down the side, and up by the Red Mill Inn, there was two just fish bigger than my screen probably, just laying on the bridge. Obviously they weren't, alive anymore. And I thought, who do you tell? Do you know what I mean? Like, I almost texted you and said, I'm not the person that's going to touch a fish. I wouldn't know what to do with the fish if I caught one. But it was more than just garbage. It was, there were actually fish just left there. I don't know if something was wrong with them. I talked to a couple people, and they said normally there's coolers. They put them in coolers. Maybe something was wrong with that particular fish. But like, if you do see something, it's not garbage, which if it's garbage, I would have just picked it up and thrown it away. I love the village mayor, but not enough to touch a dead fish. So what do you do in that case?
I guess there is a health concern, because if it's rotting and flies and stuff, we're worried about disease. I would think we do have an emergency DPW number, and we also 911 has now become like a non-emergency. It's not specifically for emergencies. If you have issues, they might then ask one of the police officers to stop over, who would then maybe drag it over, put it in the garbage can, or I'm not sure what they would do. I don't know what I would do if I found them. I'm not putting them in the back of my car. I know that.
Well, I was just curious, and I thought about texting you, and I thought, well, I actually saw one of the sheriffs. He was down Mercer Park for a transport or something, and he said that he sees the local police and he would just mention it to them. But I thought, I'm going to ask you when I see you or when we talk on Wednesday, because I thought I don't like to be a pain, that. I mean, depending on what it's about, but I also am not going to touch a dead fish. But I felt bad for it. It was kind of a sad thing to see it just, two of them actually just kind of laying there. But there wasn't a whole lot of garbage.
And the sad part of all that is that I, among others, have been big supporters of people fishing there, because it reminds us of when we were kids and everybody fished from particularly that side of the bridge. And, it was always kind of cool to know, it's not the most glamorous thing in the world to have right on the main drag, but on the other hand, it does take us back to a simpler time. It's almost like the 21st century hasn't taken over everything, and we still fish from the bridge. And I would hate for too many excuses to come up that would cause us to say no more fishing. And unfortunately, I don't think most of the people who fish are from the village, based on the ones that when I walk over the bridge, and I try to stop and talk to almost all the people fishing just to see how they've been doing. And I gather that most of them don't live here, based on what they say, that they come in, they love coming to Baldwinsville to fish and that type of stuff.
Well, and if they're, we always are finding reasons to bring people into the village. So, if that's another reason to bring them in, it's just a matter, like you've mentioned a couple times, is help keep the village beautiful if if you're coming in. But that was the first time I saw, and I think I pay more attention. I was talking to a gentleman earlier today, and I said I pay more attention to what's happening because of our conversations, or talking to Bob Wicks or Chief Lepenchak about what's going on. But the fish I would not have missed. I got to be honest. I'm more attuned to the garbage now, and I try and pick it up and help where I can. But not the fish fair. So, but I think that was the only question I had for you this week, was just, if you see something like that, because you don't want to bother the police. They have other things. They've definitely been given extra jobs with the masks and COVID and, the pandemic that's been going on. I didn't want to call them necessarily for fish, but I thought that you had mentioned that when there's garbage and stuff, it's typically the police that patrol that area asking people to pick things up or throw them away. So,
and I think it's made a difference since the chief said he would have his people, start reminding people to pick up their garbage. And I think it's almost a private mission of Bob Thibault, Officer Thibault, who have seen out there 3 or 4 times, picking up stuff, but also talking to the fishermen, maybe saying, I know this isn't yours, but there's a can, right? You could help us out, put it in the can. If nothing else, I suppose, even if the police didn't remove the fish, but maybe could bring a garbage bag. If I was there, I wouldn't have a problem, working getting them into a garbage bag, because I don't want to pick them up and carry them.
Good for you, yeah.
My hunch is that they probably had a small cooler, and those fish wouldn't fit in. I don't know why they didn't just let them go.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Maybe
they were good size.
Carp, if they're that big, I'm guessing carp. Do you know what a carp is?
Yeah, they're carp fish. Yep.
So other than that, and they're great fertilizer. My dad used to, when people would give them to him, like he'd stop and see what people were catching, and somebody would say, there'd be a carp laying there, I don't want this. And he'd say, well, I'll take it and put it in my garden. And
for fertilizer.
Oh, great fertilizer. And some people eat them. I was told, I don't know, but I was told that In the Jewish faith, they eat gefilte fish. I don't know if it's the Jewish faith or the Jewish just people in general, but gefilte fish quite often is carp. It's cut up into little pieces, and I don't know if that's true, but the person who told me is got some Jewish connections, so I'm assuming that they know a little bit what they were talking about. So it's not like it's a totally wasted fish. Obviously, great for tournaments. People love to catch them and win prizes. So
Maybe we'll have that.
Clean people. Don't leave the dead fish for Shelly or anybody else to find. Come on.
Too funny. So, well, I appreciate your time. I love learning what's happening in the village. Maybe we'll have the cart tournament again, next year. So much stuff got canceled, and you're right. We both were aware of the Taste of Baldwinsville, but neither one of us mentioned it last week. I was kind of hoping it was a myth, but I think pretty much within minutes of us disconnecting, that email came out saying that they were canceling it. So, but at least that bad news did not come from you. It came from the email.
That's right. I didn't make it up.
You didn't make it up. All right, sir. Well, enjoy your week, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
Okay, Shelly. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.